So, hi everyone. Today's topic will be the plague and plague doctors. So, those creepy guys with the beak like masks during the Bubonic Plague pandemics? Just going like, yeah, those guys. So, the recent ongoing pandemic is not the only case where we had social distancing and special quarantine measures. Throughout history, it happened often that you had to quarantine or stay away from everyone else. And the plague was no exception of that. There were apparently even villages in France that we didn't know that existed because the plague wiped out the entire population, and no one was like, hey, remember those guys? No, no one knew they existed. And because of aerial photography, we discovered those villages.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. Like for almost 1,000 years, people did not know some villages existed because they died during the plagues.
Oof.
Like, how do you think about that? Like, it's like everyone needs to die that knew
Can
about
you just
them.
imagine, like, dying and everyone will forget you ever existed?
Yeah, that is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, you know how we sort of now have, like, for example, it's technically part of Easter. Like, there's a celebration today in Eastern Europe, like Orthodox countries, where you remember the dead and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like, for people like us, this is basically the worst thing ever because there's nobody to take care of the graves, there's nobody to remember you, there's nobody to like
No one will
pass
remember it.
on.
That's like a scary thought. Like, no one will know you existed. Your
Yeah,
life will be nothing.
and until like the 1900s, recently, we didn't know some places legit existed because they were off. Like, there were no maps for those places, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Just
But yeah,
off the grid.
so we had a couple of people. Let me think who exactly. Rednecks definitely showed us some stuff. I was like, yo, do you know some stuff about the plagues in relation to Scotland? And he's like, yeah, I'll give you some. So
Let me
before I
hook you
start
up.
with, let me hook you up with some of that good Scottish history. Yeah. So before I start with the history mumbo jumbo, which technically this is also part of history mumbo jumbo, but whatever. We'll assume it's not. We'll assume it's just a meme because there were so few memes. I thought there would be a lot more stuff related to the plague. I thought there would be more monsters. There's some games here. You guys may have
Yeah.
heard like a plague tale recently where there's just the enemy is basically just priests and rats and stuff. And then you
Fucking
have the plague
priest.
doctors from SCP. Yeah, just priests and the SCP doctor that is basically just like a homing missile. If you stop, he'll just find you and kill you.
Oh,
So
God.
stuff like that, right? But I want to mention my favorite case I found so far in relation to the plague, which in this case is about Scotland and England. So this one time in the 1300s, sort of around where the plague the second wave of the plague started, the big one, right?
Yeah.
The English people get the plague, right? Like it was about the time the trade was, you know, a very big thing. The English get the plague, and they were in another war with Scotland.
Gotta
So
love those wars.
gotta love those Scottish English words, so many of them. So they ended the war with Scotland, and they decided to go die peacefully. Probably not. Probably in horrible pain with lots of bubonic diseases and
Yeah.
stuff.
No
In south,
thanks.
somewhere in London, I'm assuming. I don't know, because every English person lives in London, right?
Yeah.
Always. And
Always. Other places
and
don't exist.
other places don't exist in England. It's just London. And this is sarcasm. Don't hate me, please. They obviously went to London. They drank tea and they praised Queen Elizabeth since she's undying. She's immortal. And the Scottish people hearing of this were like, "Yo, God sent the plague to the English bastards. Let's just go help God out and like finish him off." So if God is fucking them over, we
It's
why
God's
should we?
mission.
Yeah,
He
it's
wants
God's
it.
mission. He
We need
wants
to
to get rid
join.
of
We
all
need
of
to
them.
help him.
Right? Exactly. That's like it's basically a holy crusade, but
Oh,
with the plague
Jesus.
involved. So it should be easy, right? And they went. They got sick. About 5,000 of them died, and
It's
the
God's
survivors.
will.
Yeah, it's God's will, obviously. The result. The survivors were like, yeah, fuck it, let's just go back, and they went back, and they infected every corner of Scotland,
Oh.
uh, to the point where like there were, I think, barely any places in Scotland that were not affected, which is very interesting to me because they have so many mountainous regions, and
Still, all
it's
those
just
regions got infected as well.
yeah. Basically, everything got infected. So the moral of the story for me was uh, the Scottish people don't give a shit, and neither does the plague.
No. The plague doesn't
Neither
care
does
who
the
the
plague.
fuck you are.
Yeah. Scotland, England doesn't give a shit. So that's
At least
basically
nowadays we know better. Like, if y'all are sick and everyone's dying, don't go
Just stay at
back.
home, don't start wars.
Just stay there.
Sit the fuck down. But yeah, the actual thing about the plague is, so the reason the plague transmits to people or animals is because flea bites. Some of you might know this, right? It's generally speaking sort of relatively common knowledge, I guess. And the thing is, during that period, to be more precise, actually, the fleas basically bite to suck liquids, right? To blood, whatever else. Like, just they like that, liquidy human shake. They like to get that
human liquids.
And the disgusting part about it is they regurgitate their insides. So they have this little like pocket on their ass, and they're like, you know what? Just goes back into the human, and that's how you get the pest, the bacteria that is called Yersinia pestis. This is why a lot of the Latin words for like the plague involve the term pest. And I guess part of many reasons why I guess you have like pesticides and stuff like that, pest houses today is because of this exact reason here. So the little bastards responsible for this is called Yersinia pestis, the bacteria. It spread originally through marmots and not rats and mice, as we're mostly told. The Mongolian steppe marmot is to blame for this spread to our very own European mice. So one could say that even rat populations of Europe were invaded and conquered by the Mongolian marmots and their influence. So nobody was safe from the Mongolians.
Even the rats weren't safe.
Yeah, rats are like fucking having their little war. So if they didn't directly conquer your country, they sent it back 200 years because that's a approximate number of years that it took Europe to basically get back to the same level of the same level of population. To repopulate the old numbers before the plague. And I personally want to believe that while the Mongols, and to be more specific, the Golden Hordes, led by Johnny Beg, yes, his name does sound like a 70s rock star.
Yeah.
Johnny Beg. And his friends were invading Europe and bringing cows and people infected with the plague to use as ammo in catapults versus European fortifications. Again, the real story, Google
Wait,
that.
what? They used animals?
They used infected cows and humans that were dying, and they just fucking yeeted them over like through catapults and trebuchets into castles and places. Yeah, they're crazy. The Mongols do good shit. So I want to believe, deep down in my little heart, I want to believe that the marmots, like just imagine a marmot sitting on a horse, right, riding a horse in Mongolian armor. They have their own little horse hordes, and they rode around terrorizing rat populations, which I call the Invisible Marmot War of 1345, because as a fake historian, I can give shitty names like that to events.
Okay, I will accept your authority as fake historian.
There's fake historians here. This is like I need to have a couch in the back. We could make that happen, like fake couch, fake history couch. Except it's like there's no fucking in the background. It's just rats. Just rats and marmots and Mongols maybe sitting on the couch. One day, I promise you, I will get people dressed in uniform, like in Mongol gear, and, like,
just sitting there,
just sitting there with like rats and just sitting there like that. Maybe a horse will like at some point. Don't worry about it. We'll get that to happen. So this whole thing is known as the Black Death. This is the famous plague that everyone sort of knows about. This is not the only case. There were a few cases where they happened. This pestilence killed up to 200 million people in Eurasia. Some specify from 25 to 200 million, but generally speaking, when they say stuff like that, it's probably in the bigger numbers.
Yeah, probably.
And it happened all over Eurasia, which is another term for Europe and Asia United, and Africa around the years 1346 till 1353. So only really happened for like basically around a decade. That's how much it took to sort of kill everyone off, like in the first wave. The interesting thing is it expanded, like every year would just expand in large droves to like big numbers. So it was kind of interesting how like it took about a year to like infect every big hub.
Was it like in waves every year it came back, like, and then calmed down and came back?
Like, it didn't really calm down ever. It just came, like through one wave, it came to the trading cities. And then that would take another year to expand deeper and deeper and deeper into inland. So just so you have an understanding, if you sort of imagine Europe, how it looks, first and most affected were the epicenter of trade around those time, which was the Byzantine Empire, which today, if you want to think about it, if you're not really into history, it's Istanbul, it's Greece, it's some ports in Crimea, which is considered the first like 0.0 of infection from where it sort of went into Europe. It's a port called Kaffa. Today it's, I think, called Feodosia. And It's located in Crimea. The subsequent waves, though, they went through the
Deeper.
ports first. Genoa, Venice, Marseille in the south of France, some ports in Spain, and so on. And from there, it sort of spread inland. And the more basically trade kept happening, and other things as well, pilgrimages, the more it kept spreading inwards.
Okay.
But it also got people to gain an immunity. Bell will get there to the Antonine Plagues as well. It got people to have an immunity. And today, researchers from the Netherlands, by the way, a Romanian researcher in the Netherlands with a French one and a Belgian one, I think, and a couple of the Dutch people involved as well, they proved that Europeans have genetic mutations because of the plague that help them when it comes to inflammatory diseases. So yeah, if you have European blood, European ancestry, doesn't matter really if you're like there were cases where there were like black people, there were cases where there were Arabs,
Yeah.
so those counts because they would trade doesn't care about your color. Trade cares only about money, and money spreads the plague very fast.
Yeah.
So those people basically ended up getting an immunity, and they did a research in Romania with Romanians and Roma people, which some know as gypsies, which originally came from India. And they tested Indians and they tested Europeans, and they saw that truly the Europeans have a anti-inflammatory, basically a resistance to inflammatory diseases, which I guess Yersinia pestis is part of, because it basically gives those, it inflammates the lymphatic nodes, which for dumb people like me, that's, the bloodstream. It basically makes giant bombs that go boom after a while, right? In the bloodstreams.
Okay.
So even today, though, there is still potential for infection of this, by the way. There are many cases which we will go through. But yeah, it spread through trade, religious pilgrimages, and any type of movement that brought items and people around. From the Byzantines, it spread like wildfire because, again, Byzantines are basically the kind of wannabe Romans that just went into Greece and made their own thing there for a couple of 100 years.
Yeah.
Famous people. A lot of people know about them, right? I feel like I'm talking like Trump right now. Famous people, they just went there.
Famous people, they went there.
Very good with comments.
They tried to be like Rome.
Yeah, they like to be like Rome, but they're not like Rome. They're not as good as Rome. But yeah, I'm very bad at impersonating Trump. I'm sorry. One of the reasons it spread through France, though, rapidly, was because of a city known as Avignon. Some of you might know about it, maybe even visited, especially if you're in those parts of Europe. It was home to the Pope at one time.
We always need to talk about the Pope
We always gotta talk about the Pope. I want to make it a thing, but I want to make it fun. But this one was probably the most boring episode when it comes to the Pope doing dumb shit or telling people to stop doing dumb shit. But still, he thought Rome was too boring and smelly, so he moved to a place that has snails instead as food. Because reasons. Obviously, the people didn't like the snails, so they let the Pope know by touching everything they could and thus spread the plague. To literally every corner of France. The previous big pandemic was known as Justinian's Plague, or the Antonine Plague, I think. And
that's what Bell was talking about.
I think that's the one Bell is talking about. That's the one basically almost a thousand years before that. It happened around the 541 year 541 to 542, which is the 6th century AD, or let's think in non-religious terms. CE, I think, Common Era. Yeah, that's what it stands for.
No idea.
No what?
No idea.
No ID or no idea?
Yeah, no idea. I have no idea what.
Because there's sometimes people say this. They call this before Christ and after Christ, right?
Yeah.
BC and AE, but some people are like, what if you're not religious? Then I guess it's before the Common Era, BCE, and it's Common Era, which is the Common Age, Common Era, right?
Okay.
So this is sort of this happened more recently than not. So it happened for about 200 years. And he kept coming back, and there was a dude, I think, called Procopius. He was a historian, and the dude was relentless. He was like, our king is so shit that he probably just screws with the devil. He probably I don't want to go into detail, but he was basically trashing this king Justinian because he was like, oh, he's so sinful, it's his fault it happened. But the real reason why it happened was because the Byzantine Empire at that period was like, yo, we have a lot of resources. Let's just make them into super cool things and gold and weapons and armor and jewelries and stuff, right? And they made a lot and they spread it through everywhere. And that's part of the reason why it spread through the first wave. Second wave was trade mostly because everyone was like, yo, let's just make things and sell things and make money. And it's assumed that this time the strain of the plague came from the Tian Shan mountain range in Asia, which is, I'm assuming, somewhere around like sort of those, Stan countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, China, that type of area there. So they found traces in both bodies and marmots. Again, marmots, they're the real villains.
Marmots, everywhere.
Marmots, Mongolian marmots. And afterwards, the bubonic plague resurfaced many times, and it apparently played a major role in destroying Venice as a major powerhouse in the 17th century.
Didn't they have an island?
Venice is basically the island state. They're like, yo, let's just sit on islands and make a lot of money.
But didn't they have like in Venice a specific island to send the sick people to?
They do, and that is one place where I actually have been to, and it's pretty nice, like tourist place now. Like you can like go and like swim there, and it's
shit.
Like it's supposed to be like technically the lowest of lows when it comes to touristy place, because it's like, oh, it's shit, but also
everyone died here.
Everyone died here, but
let's make money from it.
It's legit that they had a place where they anchored ships and they kept them there. So it's like, look, if you die, you die. It's your fucking fault. You fucking spread it. But you're not coming into the city with us. But it still penetrated the city in the 17th century. So we talked about the Justinian Plague, which happened around the 6th century. Then we talk about the Bubonic Plague, which is the main one we're discussing, which happened around the 14th century. And also, for people that don't sort of understand how centuries work, when you say 14th centuries, but you're talking about like the 1300s, it's like as soon as it hits like 1300, like 1300, that sort of is considered the 14th century, and it ends when, let's say, it goes to 1400. That's the 15th century. So just basically change it with one place, and you sort of understand that. Because again, as a kid, I didn't understand this perfectly, so it's helpful when I guess you can imagine it a little bit better. What about the plague in WoW? Shit, we should talk about that too. So basically, the one in Venice, the plague in Venice, this was the third wave, the bigger wave that didn't actually. This was 2.5. You know what? This is 2.5. As a historian, as a fake historian,
you can say this is wave 2.5.
Yeah, wave 2.5. I don't have a leather couch in the background that is full of like semen and stuff.
Yeah, so you need a casting couch.
Like I wish I could have like a Venetian dude sitting there like dying of the plague, but it's probably out of my budget for now. For now, but it spread mainly because of the reoccurring fucking segments, popes and stuff. This happened because of the religious wars, the 30 Years' War, which is its proper name, which didn't last 30 years, as most wars like you know about the 100 Years' War. You heard about that one, right? Between France and England. So it didn't last 100 years. It lasted way over 100 years. Same with this one, and people sort of like fucked each other so much. And this one, that if we say Plague 2.5, right? I'm also going to call this World War Zero. Like the 30 Years' War is technically World War Zero because so many dudes died of fighting of plagues and shit. Like not only the plague, like other stuff too, poxes and everything. That you could legit call it the World War Zero, I guess.
Just because it killed so many people.
So many people died. Like people don't know about this very much. 106.
Yeah.
The 116 War. Doesn't sound as nice as 100 Years' War.
Yeah, they just wanted to sound fancy.
Exactly, the people sort of wanted to sound fancy. And basically the reason, again, just for people that don't know what the 30 Years' War was, because you might hear me talk about it every now and then, right? It's basically when, like in layman terms, in simple terms, when people wanted to read their medieval comic books, which is the Bible, in their own languages and not in Latin, and they said, fuck you, Pope, and they did it, in their own way. So everyone just wanted to have some rules changed. So that's sort of the crux.
That's why they had the 30-year war.
Yeah, basically because people sort of got tired of Latin.
They were like, fuck this Latin language. I want to read it in my own language.
It's kind of crazy, though, if you think about it. So many years people were just like, you know what? I know you can't read this, and like there's judges and courts and stuff that only speak in Latin, but you don't know it. How about fuck you anyway? And that's part of the reason why people kind of got tired of it and were like, yeah, let's probably make a new religion or some shit. So kind of helped spread the pestilence throughout northern Italy, and not only. And you can maybe discuss about the plague doctors, which were a response to the more recent plagues.
In response to the more recent plagues, the most popular figure that arose from those were the plague doctors. Those guys with the beaks. You see them in creepy images, like, what the fuck? Why were they wearing that?
People do that for Halloween.
Yeah. They're like, they don't know what they're actually wearing and the story behind it, but they're like, this looks cool and creepy. I'm gonna dress up as this guy.
Absolutely.
So in times of epidemics, these physicians, known as plague doctors, were hired by towns where the plague had taken hold. So the city was paying for their salary because they were like, fuck, we need someone to treat these people or else we get wrecked. So the plague doctors, would treat everyone, both the wealthy and the poor. However, some plague doctors were still known to charge their patients and their families additional fees for special treatments or special cures that didn't actually help. Typically, these doctors are even not experienced physicians or surgeons at all. They were just like either second-rate doctors that were unable to run a successful medical practice, or young physicians trying to establish themselves, get experience, I guess. In the industry, they rarely really cured their patients. They would really serve as like a person to keep a record of the number of people contaminated for demographic purposes.
This one's kind of interesting because even today there's like a specific university, like we have Wojta, if you guys know him around, right? He actually studies something about demographics and population and stuff like that. So this was basically, people even back then were like, you know what, let's keep track of stuff, how people die and live.
Like, this guy can't really help people. He's just like, okay, you have the plague. You have the plague. You have the plague. You get the plague.
Fucking open, get on the couch. Someone buy me a couch.
Yeah. You have the plague. Go get on Nick's disgusting couch.
Yep.
So plague doctors by their covenant treated plague patients and were known as municipal or community plague doctors. Whereas general practitioners, like today as well, were separate doctors, and both might be in the same European country at the same time, or town at the same time. And in France and the Netherlands, plague doctors often lacked real medical training. Like, they were just random people. Like, they got referred to as empirics,
something.
In one case, even like one of those plague doctors was just like a fruit salesman before his employment as a physician. Like, fruit, how are you gonna treat the plague?
It's like, I know how fruit goes bad, so I know how people go bad, so I'm sure.
Not sure how that works. Not sure where you get the logic of, hey, I'm a fruit salesman, I'm gonna be a plague doctor. And those guys also wore special costumes. Like, their garments were invented by Charles Delorme in 1630, and they were first used in Naples, but later spread to be used throughout Europe. So their protective suit was like a light waxed fabric overcoat and a mask.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? I like that they added, it's a Moroccan fabric. It's a Moroccan overcoat. Apparently, like a Moroccan leather with a specific thing.
It needed to be fancy.
It needed to be fancy, dude. Black Moroccan leather.
We got this black Moroccan leather, this fancy lightly waxed fabric overcoat. We got a mask with like glass eye openings. I guess.
I didn't even know they had glass in there. I thought it was just holes, but they had like glasses.
Yeah, I guess to protect from like liquids getting into your eyes. At least they were that smart to protect their eyes as well.
Yeah, which is very true. Like if liquids go into the eyes, they can.
You can also get infected. So like even today with like Corona, I think you can also get infected if you. The bacteria you rub in your eyes or whatever.
If it goes into any moist hole.
Any moist hole. So they had like glass eye openings and a beak-shaped nose. So why did they have the beak-shaped nose, you might ask?
Because this is the most like very much their thing. Like,
yeah, the most typical thing. Like, why did they have that beak nose? Like, looking like creepy Birdman. Birdman. So typically they would stuff it with herbs and straw and spices, and they would often also carry a cane around, so like direct to patients, like stay out of my zone.
Yeah, it's like the how the Canadians do the like corona like prevention right now. They just get like they're like, yo, just stay as far from a person as a hockey stick. As
Yeah.
this is like this is legit. They actually have
Yeah.
posters from Canada. I've seen people like send them to me. It's like just stay as at the distance of a hockey stick. But she's right about this. It's like they have the beaks just so they could put spices,
Yeah, so
gauze,
they
basically
wouldn't
fill it up with as
smell
much
all
shit.
the dead,
Like yeah, all the like
the
the
putrid air.
impurities. They put rose petals in there. They put basically perfumes, anything that could
Yeah.
give you a different smell, because they
Anything that
thought that would
smells strongly
work.
and better than
Yeah,
dying
then smell like
person.
the poop of a dying person.
So the masks were designed to protect them from putrid air, which, according to the Miasma Theory, was seen as the cause of infection. So back then, they thought you got infected by the air that you
Yeah.
breathed. They were just dumb. That wasn't how it worked. Like,
it's not how it worked. Yeah.
dude, it's not the air, it's not the smell that makes you sick. Peasants also used to burn incense indoors and burn big fires outside in order to purify the air of the miasma.
Yeah, it's just crazy that they thought the air was dirty and stuff. Thank you, Cedar. They basically but yes, there's two questions I want to address on this one. They legit thought that air was full of like how do you call it? The miasma. This is what she says. Kato says that the miasma theory is basically where they thought the air was putrid and you needed to cleanse the air. That's why they burned incense. That's why and that's why they burned huge campfires. At one point in like if you see people burning stuff during the like plague periods and movies, that's not really accurate per se. Like they did burn people eventually, but at one point they only really burned fires without burning the people in them because they wanted to just cleanse the airs. And in Avignon, the place we spoke about, the Pope, after he basically killed everyone by making them come into Avignon to a pilgrimage, he just started lighting fires, giant fires, constantly 24/7. Because in their little brains, they thought that, which is funny, hypocritical of me because I have a little brain as well. I'm literally, it's not that, it happened just like 600 years ago. Like, you don't learn that much in 600 years. Like, I hope in 100 or 200 years, someone will watch this and be like, they still didn't know much, did they? Those poor bastards.
They're talking about these dumb people, but they were dumb themselves.
But the reality is, like, they legit thought you could get infected through the air. This is how, like, even today you get like people talk about how, oh, just just if you drink vodka, like in Belarus, this is apparently thing. If you drink vodka, apparently you don't get corona. So it's like, I guess if you burn fires, you don't get the plague.
I mean, in America, they think if you don't drink Corona beer, you're not gonna get Corona.
Yeah, right. That's why I keep buying more Corona, and I'm so like, I kept actually drinking more Corona in my life now than I've ever before. But yeah, this is crazy. The miasma theory was bullshit, and they eventually figured it out.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
And so in some cases, these plague doctors were so valuable that when the city of Barcelona dispatched two of them to Tortosa in 1650, outlaws captured them en route and demanded a ransom. Hey, this is like a movie idea, you know?
This is kind of, someone should make a movie out of this. If you're like a starting like movie maker, just like get two like plague doctor costumes, put two people in them, and like get some fucking Spanish dudes or some shit. Like, they'll probably not even charge you a lot. It's like, hey, $100, fuck it, I'll do it.
Yes.
And like dress them in like ye olde costumes, which again, probably not very expensive. Put them on a road and be like, haha, we got you. Pay us ransom.
Pay ransom now.
Pay ransom now.
So the city did pay for their release. And
because they were valuable.
Because they were valuable. They were like, oh my god, these plague doctors, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Obviously, they're gonna fix everything. They paid for their release, and the city of Orvieto hired Matteo Fuangelo.
These Italian names, we're sorry.
I'm butchering this. Same.
I know Italian a little bit, and I still butchering.
No, I don't speak any Italian, so I'm just guessing here. So in 1348, they hired him for 4 times the normal rate of the doctor normally earns of 50 florin per year. And Pope Clement VI hired several extra plague doctors during the Black Death period to attend to the sick people in the city of Avignon, what Nix was talking about earlier. And
there was a lot of stuff going in that area. Like, all of France basically got infected because of that area.
Basically, wherever the Pope is, shit is always going down in history. as well, you know.
Yeah.
In Venice, for example, there were like 18 doctors, but
Which is a
only
lot, right?
there was a lot of doctors in that
Yeah, like
time, you know.
the other city was like you get two. I'm sorry, guys,
You
you get
get
only two.
two, but
Venice is
Venice
like
had
18.
18. Only one was left by 1348, so like.
So the plague didn't even get to its peak, which it was like 1350 something, and the plague doctors were like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out, my dude. It's everyone's dying.
We
I'm
know
not."
that 5 of them died from the plague and 12 were missing or may have fled.
Basically,
I guess they realized they were like, ah, fuck, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
There's probably a couple of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and they're like, we can't deal with this shit.
I don't know what to do here. YOLO,
Yeah.
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah, fuck that. And they basically only one was left. So one dude was like, fuck it. It's probably either the like Duke of Venice was like, I'm gonna cut your balls off if you don't stay, or he was like, here's money because we have a lot of it. But this is also part of the reason why apparently Florence just declined. This is where the decline started. And yeah, the plague changed a lot when it comes to geopolitics. So much. It's like so many people died. Almost again from 25 to 200 million. That's almost a third or a fourth of Europe at that time. Like they had a lot of time to recover.
That's a lot of dead fucking people.
That's a lot of dead fucking people. And this is again not even the like this is sort of the middle of it. Like 2 years, sort of 2-3 years have passed, and they just started to like sort of understand how this works. And
yeah,
there were many.
This plague had a very big impact on Europe.
Yeah,
and
it changed stuff.
Right now, we're also going through a pandemic, but it will be nowhere near as impactful as the plague was back then.
Yeah, there's more chances that you get stuff afterwards that impacts stuff more. But even then, it's like, I doubt this one is going to be the big one for us. It's like, there's like...
Maybe some more people will work from home. But besides that, I don't think...
change.
I don't think a lot of things will change.
There's also a very good statistic if you go like, just Google something like statistics for the plagues and pandemics. And you can see a very cute little drawing someone did where it's like just bulbs, giant nothing disgusting, just like furry little like balls. And it sounds very funny, right? Furry balls. I love my furry balls.
Show me the furry balls.
You want to see the furry balls? You can Google it. But don't Google furry balls if you're under 18. Thank you very much. But otherwise, it's like Google like something like statistics of pandemics and stuff like that, and you get the Bubonic Plague is just a giant, massive furry ball. Like, compared to anything happening in the last 10 to 20 to 30 years, nothing compares. It's like, even like the biggest outbreaks in the last 30 to 40 years, they're just like small, like you can't...
Yeah.
When it comes to the current one, it's like you can't even see how small it is. Like, the furry ball is so small, it's just like, you can't even like... can't even play with that shit. But the Bubonic Plague is giant. The Antonine Plague was like a lot of people as well. I think it was 50 million. Apparently the like pandemic in 1917, some people say 18, like whatever, it's like that period, the Spanish influenza stuff. That one killed a lot of people as well, but even again, not comparatively, like it's still damaging to everything, but it doesn't kill as many people. More people get treated, more people get, people stop fucking... speaking of famous people that stopped dumb practices, and we were talking about how they would burn incense because they thought the air was polluted, and someone mentioned that they weren't wrong, but they were wrong in some ways. It's like technically it could spread through air. That is true. You could cough. You could like just like liquids from your body and stuff like that. It could spread like that. But generally speaking, it didn't spread just by It's not like that one movie. What's that one movie called? Kata, did you ever see? What's that M. Night Shyamalan movie?
No, I don't.
Does anyone remember in chat the M. Night Shyamalan movie that is about plants killing people because they got tired of people?
No idea what you're talking about.
Do you not know M. Night Shyamalan?
I've heard of the guy, but
he basically made the movie. I think it's called Science. He's a meme dude. He made like he made like a couple of movies about, like, his movies are always crazy. He did, which one movie he did that you might know? The Avatar live action movie, Avatar: The Last Airbender. He did that one and it failed. Like, his movies aren't really very, like, most of them are good when he does it just like his own ideas. And his own ideas are usually weird, where like this one movie where plants are supposed to kill people en masse if they walk around them and the plant feel like they're threatened. So it like spreads something into the air, right? Like this type of shit. So
Yeah.
it's not exactly that, but again, people are right. It did spread through air as well in some ways, but not as they thought. And also, someone mentioned that the rats spread it. Yes, the rats did spread it in Europe. They still do spread it to this day in some parts of the world. Surprisingly, Europe is not affected by that. Like I looked up maps. Europe is almost 100% completely. Like there's nothing left in Europe that could spread the plague. I guess everyone in Europe just got used to it. Also, yeah, there was one movie that was called The Happening. The Happening is the M. Night Shyamalan movie. I just can't say his name properly. I'm very sorry. If by any chance this man ever hears this, I love your movies, but I just can't say your name. I bet he can't say my name very easily as well.
Probably not.
And M. Night Shyamalan or something like that, I think it's called. And the other one is Signs, where they have aliens in a cornfield and shit. I don't fucking know. Where you get that clip of that dude with like the dude that played Joker in the recent movie, and he's sitting with like I think it's him with the like either him or the other one with like the like cap made out of aluminum. Aluminum. I'm American now. America.
That.
Aluminum. Yeah. Like that's one of the clips. You might know him from there.
Yeah, Europe is mostly vaccinated and immune to it now, but rats still spread it.
In some places, not in Europe though. Europe, in America, they still apparently have like the western half is still susceptible to the plague. Maybe because they have a lot of. I think they have more like
all the anti-vaxxers are not good for that shit.
Surprisingly, it's not that. Like the plague doesn't really like. I don't think it works like that. It works with antibiotics. I think they treat it with antibiotics even today, and the thing about it is, it's like some parts still have it, some parts don't. So in Europe, you're safe. I think like 99% safe, which is good. But yeah, another famous plague doctor who gave medical advice and about preventive measures, which could be used against the plague, was Nostradamus, famous prophet teller writer man from France, I think. He also recommended not to bleed the patient because they liked that. And which was a common practice, right? It was a common practice.
Yeah, back then people. They like to do that.
They like to put leeches or just to cut people's like veins, not as in like to kill them, just like bleed them out, because we talked about this on the Wendigo thing. Europeans liked to balance the humors, which were blood contained the humors, like all the like. There were a couple of them, like 4 or some shit like that, and the Native Americans didn't really believe in stuff like that, but they believed in the spirit. The spirit would be oh no, ew, an eyeball. But yeah, they this killed people, so he said please don't do that. Like he was like one of those people that actually were smart enough to be like, yo, let's probably not do that. That's
probably not a smart idea.
But yeah, we discussed this about the Algonquin, that they did it differently. Europeans did it like this. Some people were like stop, and people didn't stop. People still did it for like I think George Washington died because of medical treatments that basically were like, oh, you have a sore throat, let's basically kill you with medicine. Like they put bugs that secreted like acidic liquids into his throat just to cauterize the like wounds to make the like redness go away, and that didn't help at all. And then I think they bled him as well with like leeches and stuff. So basically, instead of like just putting the man in his bed and giving him like a soup, they're like, let's kill this motherfucker. And that's how U.S. president, first U.S. president sort of died. Yeah, and it's crazy like that. People just didn't understand medicine very well back then. Like they understood it in their own ways, which some things today, like even washing hands in some places was more common than today. Who would have guessed? But yeah.
But people know they should wash their hands, but they're too lazy to.
Yeah. Also, Nostradamus was very big into astrology. Don't at me, fuck you. I think astrology back then was different than today, though. So yeah, in the medieval medical community, they were not altogether in agreement with the plague's origins either. They didn't know where it came from originally. In the early 1300s, Pope Boniface the Eighth issued another papal bull because they liked to do that. He prohibited the dissection of human corpses because people actually wanted to study how this shit works.
But fuck studying.
Yeah, fuck studying. Like that could help. See, this is, I'm assuming, part of the thing where they're like, "Yo, let's stop digging bodies out of the ground." And he was like, "Let me do something similar, but this time I'll tell them not to dissect bodies."
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see a movie that's sort of like hovers over that stuff a little bit in a very interesting way, history, very much lots of history, but it's done in a way where you can sort of enjoy. It's very much like an artistic movie that you can enjoy. It's not just pure history, right? Like it's based on that, but it's very much super enjoyable for most people. It's called The Physician. Has Ben Kingsley in it. He's the most famous person, and has that one Swedish dude, I think, that films like in every fucking Marvel movie. You know, the doctor, that like the scientist dude that was with like Thor and everyone else.
Oh yeah, that guy.
So
that
basically, he's in that one super good movie. They have the plague there as well. Very 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 good stuff. And I'm not sure how much of that shit is legit, but yeah, you can go check it out, Google it afterwards. But yeah, honestly, if I find another pope saying another one of these, like making another of these papal bulls, I should just Google how many papal bulls exist and how many of them are like, don't dig up people, don't cut people up.
Don't cut people up. Don't look at bodies.
Don't look at bodies. Just put them in the ground and let them rest, for God's sake.
Let them be.
Let them be, right? Because a lot of them did that. Again, if you missed last couple of episodes, you can, I don't know, go check them out if you want. But basically, what we discussed is people like to dig up bodies a lot. And every fucking episode,
in every episode, it's like,
not because
the
I
Pope
want
is like,
to,
don't dig up bodies.
Don't dig bodies up. Because for various reasons, in one case, they wanted to make powder out of people, snort it up their noses because that was supposed to help them. So they imported mummies from fucking Egypt to do so. And then when the mummies from Egypt stopped, they were like, let's just dig up local bodies. Fuck it. So they did that. And dum-dums, yes, lots of them. So it happened more recently too, the plague. In the 19th century, so 1800s sort of period, originated in Yunnan, China. So this time it's less so Mongolia, more so China. Again, very sort of close to that place where, you know, Corona's supposed to have originated. Not saying anything, but just saying there might be a lot of...
Supposedly.
It's just... This is science, not me. I should just have like a couch with just like all the plagues sitting there, just humans representing the plagues. I would like to see a discussion between.
You should just have like a sign behind you saying "fake historian."
Fake historian, fake couch historian. But yeah, they had this again in China, and at one point, a few Asian people immigrated to the US, which had at that point a little thing called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Sounds maybe horrible to some people, maybe not really. It's like history repeats itself. It's like people don't really like when other people come to their place.
Yeah.
But whatever, we're not here to discuss.
That repeats itself even today.
Yeah, and they basically did that to, I guess, I don't know, curb like a lot of immigration that was coming in. Maybe they couldn't like supply them with homes and jobs or some shit. You know, people will try to get jobs wherever they can, even if it's not always perfect. But still, try to guess what that was about. Good luck. Chinese Exclusion Act. The thing was, it was supposed to last only 10 years. It was signed by, I think, some Chester Arthur president dude. I don't remember, one of those many American presidents that nobody remembers very well unless you're American.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they got the plague in America on the West Coast, and they were like, let's extend this Chinese Exclusion Act for a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm a couch historian.
So they weren't allowed into the country, or?
Say they weren't allowed into the country. They extended the Chinese exclusion thing because the plague actually started spreading in China and other places in Asia. So, you know, like, I guess they had I don't know, like probably, I don't want to say a better group of people that dealt with like, you know, pandemics than today, because America has that one like smart dude, what's his name, Fauci. But they probably had people back then that are like, yeah, let's probably not. And stuff like that. So even more recently, there is a scientific facility. During the USSR, there was a scientific facility. If people will say that I only shit on America, no. There was a scientific facility in the USSR on inside of the RLC, which is like very much dried up today. And they built it on an island, and that island is now part of the mainland because it dried up so much.
Oh, Jesus.
The island itself was called Rebirth Island, or in Russian, Возрождение. And still to this day, it's supposed to infect people on a yearly basis around the RLC. So basically, I don't know how open it is. I don't know how that stuff gets out. Maybe it's in the ground, maybe it's in the water sources. But apparently, when dust storms like rise up and they move throughout the through the area, they just infect a lot of people. And in
With the
Kyrgyzstan,
plague?
yeah, the plague. There's just the plague in the air, like in dust particles, because it stays on things. In some cases, it stays on things, and probably it survived on like some
Forever?
fish, some like marmots. Not, I don't think forever. It's depending on probably the stuff that is alive. If it has live things to live off of, I like how she's worried about that. Are you gonna go to Kyrgyzstan? Did you like make
No, I'm just like, wait, what? This
Did you
is
make a
surviving in the
Guys, let's get her to
environment.
Kyrgyzstan right now.
I mean, I'll go anywhere in the world, but I mean,
during the dust storms. No, like I doubt. Like you as a European probably don't really have too much to worry about. Even if you get it, you just probably need some antibiotics and you'd be fine. You probably wouldn't get to that point where you have just like giant pustules on your body.
yeah,
and shit
like
that.
nowadays, I'm not worried about getting the plague.
But again, those people didn't get the immunity as the Europeans did, so they got like a couple of people get infected every year,
That's
surprisingly.
crazy,
And
though. That
even
so...
today, yeah.
From
today,
that, just from being in the area that they get.
just from and
infected.
the area, the RLC actually either feeds out or feeds into the RLC. There's two rivers, so there's enough living material there to probably feed the plague. I don't know, I don't know if it spread to the like not leeches, to the fucking fleas or marmots or rats or whatever, but it's there. And again, this is one place where it happens almost every couple of years, and people like in 2013 a kid died from the plague in Kyrgyzstan, which is like it's I think Uzbekistan and then it's Kyrgyzstan. So that's like migrates a little bit. It's pretty like again, you know how there's dust storms that influence climate in America that come from Africa? Like African dust storms sometimes grow so big that they make like the big not tsunamis, the like big round things that move around and like wreck
tornado.
Florida. Not tornadoes, like the one, you know what I think you know what I'm talking, like the they even give them like 5 levels, like level 1, level 2, 3, 4. Hurricanes, yeah. So American hurricanes are in many ways sort of like dependent on like winds from Africa, which is, think about it, where's one continent, where's the other,
Yeah,
right?
that's crazy.
But it still works like that. It like gets like the warm winds and the like some shit, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I'm a couch historian, thank you. They collide, they get into America, and they have this thing. So the same thing basically happens in that area, in the former USSR area, which is now Uzbekistan, I think, in the RLC, and basically just moves the other direction, and it sometimes infects people. Yeah, which is
that's
again
crazy.
If you Google it, you will find more than one like stories about how it infects people. And the Rebirth Island in the RLC is definitely like a facility where they experimented with stuff, plague included. And yeah, that happens because of like they did a lot of experiments with the lake. They tried to make the lake like work more for the for Mother Russia, and they fucked it up.
For Mother Russia.
And that's the.
Did they only research like the plague there, or other diseases
I think
as
they
well?
researched more stuff. No, they researched the pox and stuff like that as well. So there might be more stuff, but the plague is the one that survives apparently.
Yeah.
From gorillas to whatever things.
Yeah, they have weird conversations in my chat.
This is what this is. This is a weird conversation about people dying of plagues. Also, I don't know, other stuff, like there was Bill mentioned the plague in World of Warcraft, which a lot of people might not know, but surprisingly, that video game is to be credited for this because it helped scientists around the world study pandemics
Really?
in a very interesting way, where the game developers made imagine you're going into a specific like area where there's bosses and enemies and you fight them, right? Like a raid. It's called a raid. So they went in, they get infected because it's a raid mechanic. It's a thing that has to happen to you, and the infection spreads to everyone in the group. So it's meant to be like, oh, so you fight the boss in that specific place, and then you either die or you win, and it goes away. But it didn't go away. They somehow fucked it up, so it didn't like leave the specific character. And some people would just teleport to the capitals and would run around trying to infect as many people as you can. You again, I'm not like, I tried to give you as much like information that I consider to be as legit as can be. This is part of them. Like, Google it, you will find videos on it. You'll find scientists researching it to this day, how like that specific event ended up killing, like, until they patched it a couple of days, I think, or hours in, it started like killing people. Like, people would go to the like separate, either not log into the game or go to separate parts of the map just so they could not get infected, and they basically like make it out to be like this giant thing, which it was characters in a video game. But then again, it worked exactly like the plague. It spread like that, like contact happens, plague spreads, contact happens again, until everyone just gets
That's
infected.
cool though. It was an
And
accident that it was in a game
It
like
was an
that?
accident, yeah.
Oh.
It was an accident in World of Warcraft in like 2000, I don't know, 2009.
I never heard of it.
2007 maybe, 8, I don't know, something like that, one of those. And what was it called? The Blood Plague something, I think. It's funny because it was called like something like that, either Blood something or Plague something. Quarantines, yes, quarantines were not invented, but they were practiced during the plagues. Doctors and priests, and not only would tell people to just sit at homes, these plague doctors we discussed as well would tell people to just, fucking yeet to their homes
inside.
and not go out. Yeah, they practiced quarantine back then because of this.
Stay the fuck inside, people.
They survived. And what else?
I wonder if people back in the day listened to it more or less than now.
I'm curious as well. I'm honestly not sure. I think some of them would. There were cases where priests would basically that thing was called Hakar's Blood Plague in World of Warcraft. Thank you, Crazy. I think people definitely listened in some cases, but there is a case, Ayam or town in England, I think this is the third or like 2.5 plague. I'm not sure. Basically, the dudes ended up trying to fight it, but in smart ways. They like washed money in vinegar, which apparently killed the plague, and like left it at places so that people would deliver them resources. Like, even today, like you wash your hands, you get like stuff to clean the hands with, like, those liquids, I forget what they're called, sanitizing liquids, and you wear like gloves and stuff. So they did that stuff back then as well, with their like limited knowledge of some things, probably more knowledge in some other aspects, but maybe not all of them were correct, so a lot of them were forgotten. But there's, like, to this day in England, a place that is known as the Plague town. It's called, I didn't include it in here, but if I go to, if I'm fast enough, we're almost done here. I'm super sorry if I'm rambling. The city of Ayam, this is the place. You can check it out super fast on Steam. It's basically, it was very much a industrial area, and then they made it, you know what, it's like, we're known for the plague, so let's do this thing. They have some stones related to it where they hid money so they could get resources, and I think something like that. What else? They had doctors and priests, both from both sides, Catholics and non, like, other stuff that were helpful, trying to help and things. So people tried to fight it in many interesting ways. So pretty cool, I think. Yeah,
I guess back in the day, authoritarian like governments were more a thing compared to now. They were less.
What do you mean? They were more authoritarian?
Yeah, were they?
Yeah, they definitely were. Everyone was basically a monarchy, and most people were okay with that. It was kind of crazy. Everyone was
so
like,
people were more likely to just listen to what they were told.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people weren't. That's why you get all the hate for the priests often, because a lot of things happen with religion happen because of shit like that, where people just don't listen and go do their own shit. I kind of want to talk about this at some point, but this is not related, I guess. I don't know. Crusades, like I was talking about this with my I think either my mom or my dad. It's like there was one point where some crusaders from Germany were like, yeah, let's go and just crusade towards Jerusalem, but we'll kill everyone in our path, because they did that
Jesus
a lot.
Fuck.
And they're like, oh, there's a rich Jewish village where a lot of people that are Jewish people, and they have a lot of money there. And the priests actually sent like I'm not sure if it's the Pope or not, but they sent like a lot of what's it called? They sent help in form of troops and resources to defend a Jewish village from crusaders, and they still failed because there were more crusaders, I think, and they were like, yo, if you don't open the gates, I'll kill all of you. And he's like, I'm literally a servant of God, and that dude's like, I don't give a shit, I'm going to forgive all my sins in the crusade, so fuck you, that type of shit.
Jesus fuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of fucked up stuff.
Yeah, crusades were fucked up.
Crusades were fucked up, yeah. They're fun to make games of, but they're kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like games is another thing. It's a game, but.
Yep, we're good. That's it.
Yeah. That's basically the end of episode 4 of Bloody Mythical OwO.